In order to prove the feasibility of airborne support, should such an eventuality occur, the United States and Iranian forces under Central auspices planned a joint exercise called Delawar. This successful, far-reaching exercise is the first of its kind on this scale. MATS, the Military Air Transport Service, airlifted a reinforced brigade from Fort Campbell to Iran. In addition, 550 tons of cargo were transported in order to equip and supply the approximately 2,300 airborne troops involved in the exercise. Giant transports lowered their ramps to take in the necessary work tools of today's modern fighting man. Jeeps, artillery, communications equipment, all were loaded in record time. These items of military material traveled thousands of air miles, together with the soldiers who would use them, effectively demonstrating to our friends and other nations the mobility of the United States Armed Forces. Also present at all times during the Delawar exercise was the supersonic firepower of the supporting tactical fighters. Strategic Air Command KC-135 jet tankers refueled the TAC fighters en route from the United States to Iran. Incirlik, a base of CENTO member Turkey, was the first stop for the battle group on their global trek. At Incirlik Air Base, elements of the Delawar operation awaited the D-Day go order. The troops remained on the alert during their stay by tough battle conditioning exercises. Of course, like soldiers everywhere, time was found for that moment of relaxation and a chance to nourish the inner man. Meanwhile, in neighboring Iran, elements of the Iranian Royal Guard, assisted by their United States military advisors, staged a warm-up paradrop. Iranian flight crews and airborne officers went over the operation plan and pinpointed the drop zone area. The confidence and skill of these men testified to their qualifications as paratroopers and reflected the excellent training given them. Now, all was in readiness in Iran. Exercise Delawar's nerve center was Vahdaty Air Base. Among the first to land at Vahdaty were transport carrying the Joint Task Force staff. Communications equipment and personnel also arrived on these aircraft. Setting up their gear with the speed and skill that come only from long hours of training, a communications network was soon established. The first combat elements to arrive in Iran were the F-100s, which landed at Vahdaty with routine precision despite blowing dust that hampered visibility. United States and Iranian Air Force officers were on hand to observe the landings. Also on hand for the big picture was Sergeant Major Donald Cosgrove.
We're down on the flight line here at Vahdaty Air Force Base, and while we have some time prior to the massive airdrop taking place, we're going to speak to a couple of the military personnel involved in Exercise Delawar. One of the most interesting things about this exercise is that for every American participating, he has his Iranian counterpart. In just a few moments, this F-86 fighter jet behind me will be taking off as a part of the air cover for the airdrop. And I have standing to my right a second lieutenant jet pilot of the Imperial Iranian Air Force. This is Second Lieutenant Hijazi. And Lieutenant Hijazi, I would like to ask you now how you feel about being able to take part in an exercise with American pilots.
Well, I'd like very much to take this exercise, and I think this flight with the American will bring me some memory from my flying time in the United States.
And where did you do your flying, sir, in the United States?
Well, I got my primary and basic training out of Reese Air Force Base, Lubbock, Texas, and my gunnery training out of Nellis Air Force Base, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Lieutenant, I must say I noticed one thing about you. You speak very good English. Did you have to take any language training?
I got about 4 months of language training out of Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas.
And now we'll have a few words with the gentleman to my left. This is Major Stallings. And Major Stallings, how do you like being here halfway around the world taking part in Exercise Delawar?
Well, Sergeant, it's a real fine opportunity for me because one of the jet pilots in the lieutenant squadron is an old student of mine from the United States.
On D-Day, just before H hour of the first airdrop in Exercise Delawar, His Imperial Majesty Reza Shah Pahlavi arrived at the reviewing stand with his staff and aides. Among dignitaries were representatives of the other Central countries, England, Pakistan, and Turkey, observing an exercise designed to prove the effectiveness of Central member armed forces. At exactly H hour, the first wave of planes was seen over the drop zone. The heavy equipment was dropped first. Then paratroopers of the 101st jumped into the desert some 9 miles north of the Iranian city of Dezful. With perfect military precision, the clusters of chutes filled the sky in this first jump of the 3-day Delawar exercise. Once on the ground, the soldiers scrambled for their equipment, regrouped, and later joined their Iranian comrades in arms holding a line to the north. After the drop, Sergeant Major Cosgrove talked with the exercise commander.
General Adams, I'm happy to say that once again our paths cross, only this time halfway around the world, sir, in Iran. In addition to the command just mentioned, General Adams has another command. And General, will you explain briefly what is that command? What does it involve?
It involves the military, U.S. military responsibilities in what we call the Miasa area, that is the Middle East, South Asia, and Africa south of the Sahara. In discharging these responsibilities, all of our military activities are brought under one single commander. This exercise is under my command because I bring the forces over, put them into the exercise, and turn them over to the combined commander who conducts the operation here.
General, you have had the opportunity to meet and talk with His Imperial Majesty Mohammadrضا Shah Pahlavi. What were the Shah's impressions of Exercise Delawar?
So far, the Shah has expressed great pleasure over what has taken place in the exercise. Just a few moments ago, he turned to me and said, "That is a very precise drop indeed." And there was enthusiasm in the manner in which he expressed himself.
Sir, do you feel this exercise will have some kind of an impact on the Iranian army and, in fact, on the Iranian people?
I think that any strong common endeavor between two people does have a large impact. The impact that I've observed is one of friendliness to start with, but most importantly, is that we are learning how to work with the Iranian armed forces as a combined joint team engaged in a common enterprise. With this teamwork, if we should ever have to operate together, our strength will be multiplied.
As the first airborne assault was successfully concluded, the Shah left the stands in order to follow the action as it developed. He boarded a jeep and headed a convoy of dignitaries to watch the combined exercise involving United States and Iranian ground forces.
We are now 250 miles, or as they would say in this part of the world, about 400 kilometers from Vahdaty Air Force Base. It is a sunshiny but still breezy day as we stand on this hill overlooking the blue waters of the Persian Gulf. It is still D-Day, H-hour plus 3 to be exact, and the amphibious assault on Karg Island is well underway. This operation is still a part of Exercise Delawar and is designed to point up the ability of the United States military establishment to deliver amphibious support to our allies if and when they should ever call for it.
A United States naval force consisting of 1 LSD, 2 destroyers, 1 reinforced Marine company, and 8 helicopters took part in the action. The United States and Iranian naval forces in the Persian Gulf launched an amphibious attack on the beaches of Karg Island. Their mission? To clear the island of enemy insurgents. As the landing craft hit the beach, United States Marines stormed ashore. Other Marines were airlifted by helicopters. The choppers contributed their share to the success of the operation. Use of helicopters greatly increased tactical mobility and enabled the troops to move over terrain obstacles such as beaches, rivers, and mountains. Heavy equipment was transported in a similar manner. Once again, the Shah and his staff and the official observers witnessed firsthand this valuable training exercise. The landing forces were recovered from Karg Island at the conclusion of the operation, and within days would conduct another combined amphibious assault in the Persian Gulf area. It is now D-Day plus 2 of Exercise Delawar, and we have returned to the western desert area of Iran.
This is Captain Paul Weinman, United States Army Airborne Special Forces Advisor to the Imperial Iranian Army, speaking to you from Drop Zone Hawk, located somewhere in western Iran. I have just parachuted from an American Air Force C-130 aircraft with a Pathfinder, or, as the Air Force says, a combat control team, onto this DZ, onto DZ Hawk, for the purposes of laying communications and navigational aids for 6 American C-130 aircraft, which within a few moments will be approaching from this direction, carrying 2 companies, an American company from the 101st Airborne Division and an Iranian airborne company from His Majesty's Imperial Guard. Now, these 2 companies, in just a matter of moments, will jump here, will move out into assembly areas and move up to reinforced Task Force Reza, which is part of Exercise Delawar, presently going on here in Iran.
1 United States and 1 Iranian company of airborne troops demonstrated the combat readiness of the United States and Imperial Armed Forces in a highly mobile combined operation. Together, the armies attacked across the rugged terrain, advancing toward the fictitious enemy. The drive and combat spirit shown emphasize the meaning of the code name for the exercise, Delawar, or courageous. United States F-100s took off in heavy dust for a ground support mission. They were followed by Iranian F-86s. Trained in the United States, the Iranians showed themselves to be fine pilots. The Iranian pilots spotted their targets and peeled off for the attack. Forward air control guided the planes to their targets. American F-100 strafed enemy positions on the final objective. After the strikes, the planes returned to Wḥdeti Air Base. The final objective seized, United States troops and aircraft assembled at Wḥdeti for the long trip back to the United States. Redeployment began at once, for the element of speed was important to the United States Armed Forces. Despite the unabating dust, the giant planes started to airlift men and equipment back to the United States safely and on schedule. United States military officials have devoted considerable effort to the evaluation of Exercise Delawar and its contributions to the defense of the free world. They believe that the success of the exercise has given a strong boost to the Central Treaty Organization. United States and Iranian fighting men have gained invaluable experience both in staff and command functions and in combined operations in the field. This combined effort helped prove that differences in language and customs need not be a barrier to allies working and fighting together in a common cause. Moreover, the exercise demonstrated that joint operating procedures enhanced the combat power of Allied forces. The Delawar exercise helped strengthen the ties of friendship between the two countries. As for the United States Armed Forces, Exercise Delawar has furnished evidence of the effectiveness of the Joint Task Force concept, with its emphasis on teamwork among the Army, Navy, and Air Force. It is another demonstration of the ability of the United States Armed Forces to react swiftly to a call for help and to dispatch a strong, mobile fighting force to any part of the world in a matter of hours. We've shown you the planning, weapons, and materials that made this three-day exercise possible. But the spirit of close cooperation between the participating soldiers of both countries was the true significance of Exercise Delawar.
Wḥdeti Air Force Base, Iran, halfway around the world in the cause of freedom. This is Sergeant Major Donald Cosgrove, United States Army, saying goodbye from Iran for this week's issue of The Big Picture.